A formal welcome to everyone. I think the recording has started to our head mentor caucus. We will have the head mentors coming in one by one, starting with Hannah Hope, and then they'll be having their full caucus questions, and then the next head mentor will come in. So I think everyone has left that needs to leave. We have Hannah here. Hannah, you can put your camera and your mic on for us.
Hi.
Hello, it's so nice to see your face. I'm just going to spotlight you so that your face stays there. Okay, so we have a standardized question that I'm going to ask you, and then we will open it up to the panel, and then the panel will also ask you questions. So your standardized question is, which of your two roles is more important? Your role as head mentor or your role as HC, House Committee member, and which would you stand by in a conflict?
Okay, this is an interesting question because for me, I would say the role as General House Committee is very important. However, head mentor is something I know that I'd be very good at. So I would definitely stand by General Harkar if there was a conflict, purely because I think it is important for your first priority to be the House, and I feel General House Committee is that. You are part of a team, so sticking to your team is very important. Whereas sticking to head mentor, as important as it is to me, and as important the role is to me, I feel as though your responsibility should be backing your house and backing your team. So yeah, in a position of conflict, I would definitely choose House Committee over head mentor, but it's a difficult choice to make, very difficult. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm going to open up the question to the panel. Do we have someone on the panel that has a question for Hannah? There we go, Joss.
Hey, Hannah.
Hi, Joss.
So my question to you is, in your speech, you mentioned how you are quite a good people's person, and a head mentor should be able to support their mentors. And I just want to know, in addition to having good people skills, what other strengths do you have that will contribute to being able to be a good support to your mentors?
I think another skill would be being a good listener. I feel as though that ties into being a people's person as well. I feel that being able to listen to someone makes them feel heard. And I feel like everyone needs to be heard in times of need. And I feel like sometimes that's all you need. You need that more over advice. And I think being a head mentor isn't necessarily giving advice unless you are explicitly asked to give advice. So I think being a good listener is definitely a good skill to have as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. I have a question for you as well, Hannah, and my question is, you spoke about financial inclusivity in your speech, and examples such as selling things at the end of the month. What other practical ways do you think you can incorporate that, specifically as your role as head mentor?
That's interesting. I think it would be my priority to include that in every aspect. I think maybe as a head mentor, making my mentors aware of that in order for them to also let their mentees know of this initiative that we're running. And I think it's also what could be helpful is asking mentees and maybe putting out a survey to ask what day people prefer to have sales be. I think the reason why I said towards the end of the month is because I know that most parents only send out allowances towards the end of the month, and that way it would work best for all of us and be able to include most, if not all, of our Rs. So I think maybe a poll could be something very useful in that regard in order for us to use data instead of just based on assumption. I think that could help.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to open it up to the panel, and if no one has a question yet, I do have a house question for you. So I'll just see if someone else has a question. Okay, I think I'll ask the house question quickly. So house question is, how will you, and then Joss and Puka, how will you deal with the stress of being responsible for so many people's actions?
Okay. I think maybe towards the beginning of my term, if I am lucky enough to be elected House Committee, I would, okay, wait, actually rephrase the question. This is a House Committee question.
No, it's just a question from the House.
Oh, how would I deal with stresses from?
How would you deal with the stress of being responsible for so many people, because you've got a big mentor team?
Oh, okay. I think I'd make it very clear towards the beginning of the term that I'm open to talking about any stresses that mentors may have, but I'd make it very clear, and I mentioned this in my speech as well, I think being assertive is very important. So making sure that mentors know that conflict, stresses are more than welcome to be spoken to with me, but it shouldn't be something that they shouldn't rely on me so much to the point where they can't deal with their own stresses. So I think it's important for them to know the channels in which they should move before moving up to me. I think that should be almost the last resort before dealing with huge stresses. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to go with Puka and then Joss.
Hi, Hannah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Cool. So as a head mentor, right, you deal with a lot of mentors and possibly even mentees, and you take a managerial role as well. So how would you deal with like a conflict between a mentor and a mentee, for example?
I think what is very important is for me, if I were elected that role, would be to explain to mentors that if there is a problem or any conflict between them and a mentee, they should make an effort to deal with the conflict just between the two of them before moving it all the way up to me. Again, like with the previous question, I feel like that should be the last resort. And I would also be more of an advisor than giving a final solution. I don't think that it should, like, a mentor should know that conflicts should be spoken about. It should be something that is easy to talk through and should never become a huge problem. I think that if the conflict becomes something that I have to step into, a mentor would have to have a serious conversation with me, because I think anyone that is elected a mentor should be able to speak to their mentee and solve any conflict that could possibly be there.
Hello again. Okay, so my question comes from your application. You did mention that you have a great attention to detail, and you did list it as a weakness. And I'd just like to know, can you please elaborate on this and also tell us how you're going to ensure this doesn't impact anything in your term, especially in terms of managing your time?
I think the reason why I mentioned it as a weakness is because, as great as it is to be a perfectionist, things can't always be perfect. So paying attention to detail can work as a disadvantage in terms of, like you mentioned, time management. So I think the best way, and the way I do deal with that, is planning my time better. To-do lists, that's what I do. I have a whole bunch of lists and I do everything accordingly, so that I don't pay attention to one thing and waste my time with multiple other things. And I know that with the role comes a lot of responsibility. So paying attention to detail, it's kind of, you have to weigh up your options, whether you want to pay attention to detail or get all your work done. So obviously in my role as General Haka or head mentor, I would prioritize time management over detail.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. That also concludes our time. So I just want to say thank you for you to join us tonight. And I really hope you have a lovely evening further. You can leave the call once you are done.
Perfect.
And then we will have the next candidate come on, and that is Kate.
Hello.
Hello. Can you hear and see and everything?
I can. It's working really well.
Is your camera on?
Yes, it says it's on.
Do you mind just putting it off and on? It happened last night or 2 days ago with someone else as well. It's just your screen is just black.
Is that better?
Yes, we can see you now.
Hey.
Very welcome to your caucus. I will be asking you one generalized question and then a standardized question, and then we'll be moving on to the panel questions. So your standardized question is, which do you consider more important, your role as HC member or your role as head mentor as part of the mentor group, and which would you stand by in a conflict?
Sure. That's a big question. I have to say, I think being a house committee member is pretty important to being a successful head mentor. You can't be good at leading an entire team when you can't even support the one that you're in. So when it comes to choosing one of them, I think I want to say my heart would lie with the house committee. But if that ever rose in situations with conflict, I would have to choose head mentor. Just because at the end of the day, the mentoring team is a big part of Rsdr and a big part of our week, and is really the face of what Rsdr represents. So I would definitely have to say I would stick to my guns and try my best to keep my mentor team safe and as successful as it can be.
Thank you. I'm going to open up the questions to the panel now. Do I have a question from the panel for Kate? Fuka, there you go.
Hello.
Hi, Kate. Question: what is one thing that you think should be added to the training of the mentors to improve how they work and so on with the mentees?
I probably would. I mean, with COVID, obviously, it's been a very unique situation. But one thing I would add in is maybe some more bonding experience and time, and like team building and exercise and those kind of things. Just because when you are off campus and you are working online, we don't know where we're going to be next year. It's really important to have that strong foundation of, interrelational strength. So I'd probably add in maybe just like 1 or 2 days of getting the mentors together and letting them discuss and build their friendships and being on a firm ground with one another before the leadership training sets in.
Thank you. Do we have another question from the panel? Joss, there you go.
Hey, Katie.
Hello.
Okay, so my question to you is, just in terms of your degree, you're going into your final year. It's quite demanding with time and your energy. And I just want to know, how are you going to maintain a good work-life balance, and including HC with that?
Yes. So I found maintaining a good work-life balance has previously been one of my weaknesses. And it's actually something I learned to develop through my mentorship program, because suddenly I had a lot more responsibility and a lot more to be accountable for. So I kind of got my life in order. So I think I'm kind of hoping that what's going to happen is that by being more busier and realizing that I need to, keep myself up to work as head mentor, but also make sure I'm doing well academically, it's just going to force me to be more structured. And I'm pretty good at time management and planning as is. So I think really being a head mentor would just solidify that and kind of show up my strength.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. I have a question for you, and it's to do with choosing your mentor team. What would you be looking for in a mentor when choosing your team?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I would definitely be looking for diversity in my team in general. I'd want a mentor team that has a whole range of strengths, and a whole range of interactions and different kinds of people, because the bigger the spectrum we can get in our team, the more people we can reach, and the more people, hopefully with the newcomers, we'll be able to support. But in an individual mentor, I would definitely have to look for someone who is approachable and, I don't want to say soft, but has a lot of integrity to what they do. And I would also maybe look for someone who tends to be a bit more compassionate, and can plan their lives well, and who will prioritize their mentees appropriately.
Thank you very much. Do we have a question from the panel?
Fuka, do you want to go?
Yeah, can I please go? I just have a follow-up on that. On how would you like go about sort of making sure that your mentors are being approachable, they are keeping up, they are prioritizing their mentees and so on. Like, yes, you'd look for that in a mentor, and then add them to your team. But then in the long run, how would you sort of like hold them accountable to that?
Yeah. I think a big part of that would just be in interacting with them and checking in on them and making sure that they're having conversations about what they're doing in their sessions, with me or with other HC members, whoever they're comfortable with, and just really keeping an eye out for anyone who is struggling, because a lot of the times when the academic pressure sets in, people tend to crawl into their own spaces, and I think burnout's a real big threat when it comes to making sure that they're still maintaining their roles. So I think it just has to comes down to having a strong relationship with them so that they can talk to me, and I also hold myself accountable to checking in on every one of them, and not just occasionally, but often.
Thank you, Kate. We have time for Josh's question, and then I think our time will be up.
Okay.
Okay, so my question is to do with your speech. You mentioned that you want to continue to deconstruct the divide between the first years and the house committee, or the newcomers. So I just want to know, how are you going to continue this?
So what I'm hoping is going to happen is that because of the deconstruction we've had this year through all the newcomers, a lot of the team next year in the mentor team is already going to have a strong bond with our HC, because they would have been the newcomers going through, or the seniors going through the change and becoming more approachable. So I'm going to build on that. And then I also want to see if, I mean, this obviously changes with COVID and regulations and stuff, if we can delegate more to our mentors, get them involved with the HT, get them involved with the different portfolios, get their perspectives on different kinds of things, so that we really become an integrated house. And it's not just a leadership, there's not just leadership steps, but everyone is working as a team, not just a mentor team and an HC, but together.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. That also brings us to the end of our time. So thank you so much for joining us. I hope you have a lovely evening further, and we'll see each other soon.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so our next head mentor candidate that will be joining us will be Liane. So we'll just wait for her to get on the floor, and here she is. Hello, Liane.
Hello.
Can you see and hear us?
Hello. Hello, hoe gaan het?
It is going
I can
really
see
well.
you and hear you, yes.
Great. Okay, I'm going to start off with a standardized question, and then we'll move on to the rest of your caucus, and then I'll open it up to the panel and they can ask you questions as well. So your first question is, which one of your two roles do you deem more important? Your role as HC member or your role as head mentor? And when a conflict arises, which side would you choose?
Can I ask you to elaborate on the conflict? What do you mean with a conflict arises between my two positions within the house? Sorry.
A conflict between your two positions, where you have to choose whether you're acting as head mentor or HC.
Well, I would like to think that for me, if I am elected in the position of head mentor, that I would see the HC part of my position and the head mentor part as one, and not try to divide it too much, because then it can become that I'm two different people, and that is something that I would like to avoid. So if they do arise like a conflict between the general HC position and the head mentor position, I would obviously need to first consider the head mentor position, as that is my first position foremost before general HC, because there's a bigger portfolio within the head mentor than within the HC, and I believe that the head mentor has more responsibilities towards other people directly, like the mentees and the mentor group, than the general HC position holds.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the rest of your questions now. So I'm going to open it up to the panel. Does anyone on the panel have a question for Liane? Go for it, Puka.
Thank you. Hi, Liane. So we know that, retention is like one of the biggest problems regarding PSOs, right? Or that PSOs face. So like, what steps would you sort of put in your term as a head mentor to combat that?
I missed the first second, the retention. Sorry, what was that word? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. So the retention of first years or retention of newcomers after welcoming usually is a big problem for PSOs. So how do you like intend on handling that as head mentor?
Participation.
Sorry? Hello?
Liane, you just talked a little bit.
Okay. Can I speak? Can I go?
Yes, you can go.
Hakak. Is that hak?
Liane, you were gehakt. I think we just missed each other with like 30 seconds, but
okay. I think what would be important for me if I am elected as the head mentor in my term, I would first and foremost, sorry? Can I continue? Can I continue?
Yes, you may continue.
Okay. I thought Carly said something. So first and foremost, I would like to put together a very diverse and passionate mentor group that would make good first impressions, as first impressions are very important. Scientifically, it says a first impression is made within 5 to 15 seconds. And as mentors and head mentor, the first years mentors and head mentor is one of the first people they see. So having a good first impression and not being like distant from them, but having a representative and inclusive environment will first and foremost give more a sense and a culture of belonging and a safe space. Sorry, there's people in my building screaming. And then further, that I think normally there's a lot of marginalized or people who get excluded, who are generally not involved within some of the events that Rsdr hosts because they feel excluded. I think it would be important to get the mentors, which will also give them a chance to take initiative and develop their leadership, is to build structures that will supporting structures that will support and include some of those members that feel excluded and give them value within Rsdr, which will make them be more involved in that type of sense. And further, with those structures of supporting, and it would also give Rsdr a chance to broaden their horizons of the conventional way of having events, of just the SAR and the sport and the house dance, but having other structures and conversations and the developmental sessions that will increase the participation of first years and the value of first years being the value they would have within Rsdr.
Thank you, Liane. Do we have another question from the panel? Joss, go for it.
Hi, Liane.
Hi.
So my question for you is, what inspired or encouraged you to stand for the head mentor position?
I think having Marichen this year as a head mentor was a really good experience for myself and my personal growth and development, not just within leadership, but within myself. And further, I had a chance, well, I had quite a big mentee group, which was kind of ironic, seeing that I'm like the arts and drama and music, which is usually the lesser. But I was also speaking this afternoon to one of my mentees. I was on a coffee date with her, and she said she appreciated so much that there's something for them that listens and are representing them, someone they can find comfort in and have a safe space to talk to and not just be out. So I think what I mean is that I like to help people, and having a very good first year with my mentor and head mentor, and this year, I want to give more back to Rsdr within that, and I believe that my leadership skills can contribute and build what is already existing. Oh, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
But they leave. Yes, I can hear you.
I did hear most of what you said, but your connection wasn't great for a part of it. Would you mind quickly giving a small recap on the last bit?
Not any. Hello?
Can you hear me?
I said that I would yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Can you hear? Oh, yes, you can hear me. I can see you currently. Okay. My recap of the last bit is so that I would have those supporting structures, but it will also give Rsdr a chance to broaden their horizon of not just having the traditional and conventional events that Rsdr has, but to create more events and give opportunities to other parts of the university to get included within Rsdr and give a bigger picture out to the rest of the Maltese community. And I can't even remember what I said right now. I was thinking so fast. But basically, just giving my my mentors a chance to develop as well. Oh, what does inspiration mean? I remember now. But yeah, Marichen, my first mentee that told me that they appreciate somebody being there for them to listen and having somebody to feel safe. And so in that terms, I think I would be a perfect candidate to be part of the transformation furthermore and build on the already existing existing works, I think, that has been built by the previous leaders, to continue building on that and transform it into an even bigger and more inclusive community. That is what inspired me. Yes.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Liane. That is about all we have time for. I did account for your recaps and everything. I paused your timer, so do not stress. You still got your full time. Thank you so much for joining us, and I really hope you have a lovely evening further.
Thank you. I hope you guys have a nice evening as well. Bye. See you later.
Okay, so our next candidate is Mishka, so we'll just wait for her to get on the call. I think Mishka is on her way.
Hello.
Hello, Mishka.
Long the link disappeared and then I had to like go into
Oh,
Outlook.
no, it's fine. Don't stress. Would you mind just holding your phone a little bit further from your face, because we can just see your eyes at the moment?
Really?
Okay, that is good. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to start off by asking you a standardized question, and then I will open it up to the panel and they can ask you your questions as we go on. So your standardized question is, which of your two roles do you consider more important? Your role as HC or your role as head mentor? And when a conflict arises, which side will you choose?
Okay, so for the first question, I would say head mentor. The reason why I think head mentor is because the head mentor is the head of the mentors, right? And the mentors work one-on-one with the first years, and it's very important for us to make sure that the transition from high school to university is smooth for the first years. And as a head mentor, you know, you are there for those mentors to kind of guide them and be able to teach them, if that makes sense, on how to do that for the first years. So if I had to choose, I'd say head mentor, but yeah. The second question, there's a conflict between the two. I don't know if I'd be able to choose sides. I think I'd just be Switzerland. But if I had to choose sides, I'd go with head mentor for the same reason. But if it came down to like I had to, I'd choose head mentor. But I think I'd rather be Switzerland.
Thank you, Mishka. I'm going to open it up for the rest of the panel. Do we have a question from the panel?
Hello.
Hey, Puka.
Hi. So my question is, what is one thing that you would do differently, as a head mentor? What is one change that you would bring to the position?
One thing that I would bring, um, honestly, I haven't really thought of it because for me, I like looking at Merck, for example, I think what she did was quite good, but I think I'd bring more like diversity into it, so more having everyone else's opinions and taking those opinions into account more. Not saying that our previous head mentors didn't do that, but if I had to be a head mentor, I think I would take everyone's opinions in more, take it into account, and just bring that type of culture in, that mode of democracy. And yeah, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Mishka. I also have a question for you. How would you deal with the stress of being responsible for such a big group of people?
I'm a tiny stress ball, so that would be odd. But I think um if I have to hypothetically make it into HC, I would be confident in the fact that I'm not alone. Because I obviously have the other HC members. So I wouldn't go to them and burden them with my problems, but I think I would be okay with the fact that I would be able to speak to other HC members, just to let that stress off my chest, to um, not keep everything to myself and feel that I can um, confide in other HC members. So I feel that if I had a lot of stress, I would probably confide in my house, like the house committee as well.
Thank you. Do we have another question from the panel? Joss, go for it.
Hi, Mishka.
Yes.
So I'd just like to know, what strengths of yours make you especially suitable for the head mentor position?
I think that I'm a people's person. I'm quite confident when it comes to talking to people and just being out there and being energetic. And I feel being a head mentor, you really need to be able to be approachable and a people's person, especially because you're leading such an important group. So I feel that as a people's person, being confident that if I was able to lead the group of mentors, that they would be comfortable enough to approach me with any issues or just speak to me about anything. So I think, yeah, me being a people's person and confidence is something that could benefit me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mishka. I have a question for you. What do you think is the one thing you wished you knew about mentoring before welcoming, and how will you go about making sure your group of mentors know that?
Okay, I knew this. Like, I knew, like, the HCs told us all the time that don't expect for everyone to come and don't expect to get replies. But I think I still wasn't prepared for it. I still I wasn't prepared for the I don't want to say disappointment, but the amount of like no shows you got. And I feel that if I make it into head mentor, I feel that I would stress that a lot, because it's not that it brought down my don't want to say ego, but self-esteem or whatever, but I do want to stress it to the future mentors that just because not everyone's going to show up, etc., doesn't mean anything about yourself and stuff. So I think, yeah, stressing that point to the mentors of next year, and that I wish I was more prepared for that, more prepared for not everyone coming to everything in a week.
No, I completely understand that. We have time for one more quick question. Do I have a question from the panel? Puka, go for it.
Yes, we do. Just to build on the question of the no-shows, right? So, newcomers usually disappear after welcoming. So, what are some of the things that you would like implement to combat that?
I think because we're in Stellenbosch and we have to take into account the type of people that we are mentoring, they're no longer like these high school kids. So they first years. So I feel like they want to be able to explore. So maybe um implement like coffee dates, study dates, maybe go out for a drink or two one night, or just so that they can feel comfortable around and also feel comfortable enough. Like, okay, this seems fun. Maybe I should show up more. And Yeah, I do think messaging also not continuous. You don't want to bombard them with messages, but just letting them know that you are there, and personal messages. I feel like there's a lot of things you can do to make your first years comfortable. But for Stellenbosch specifically, I think it's just taking them out. It's Stellenbosch.
Thank you, Mishka. That also concludes your caucus questions. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you have a lovely evening further. You're more than welcome to leave the call once you are done, yeah? Yes, and then our next head mentor, head mentor candidate, jumping ahead of things here, will be Robin.
Hello.
Hello, Robin. Robin, I have to tell you something. Knowledge had problems with his neck last time because he doesn't like doing this the whole time. So could we maybe just shift the perspective a little bit?
No stress, no stress. I'll just take my headphones out. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can still hear you. Do you mind just sitting a bit back or turning it a bit down, because we're only seeing forehead and room at the moment. Our view is a little... There we go. There, we can see your face. Awesome. So very welcome. Can you hear us? Okay, you can unmute yourself as well now. So I'm gonna ask a... No, it's fine. I'm gonna ask a standardized question for you, and then I'll open it up to the panel so that they can ask you some questions as well. So my first question to you is, the two roles you have as head mentor and HE, which of them do you deem as more important? And if a conflict should arise, which of the two side would you choose?
So personally, in my speech and also in my life, I think that no matter what capacity you're in, wherever you are, it is important. So I don't think that head mentor or HC is necessarily more important than the other, but I do think that the role that you're in is incredibly important to you as a person. So if I think a conflict would arise, I think I would just approach it as the individual person or myself. So I would look at it that way. I wouldn't necessarily place one above the other.
Thank you so much. I'm going to open it up to the panel now. Do we have a question from the panel for Robin? There we go,
Hi,
Joss.
Robin.
Hi, Joss.
Okay, so my question to you is to do with your application. You mentioned quite a cool initiative that you wanted to start for your mentors to do with their mentees regarding academics. Would you mind please expanding on this?
Yes. So when I first joined Rsdr, I didn't know what to expect. And joining Stellenbosch University, I was even more overwhelmed by what was expected of me academics-wise. So I thought that it would be great for mentors who have gone through first year, who have walked in Stellenbosch University and Arusia for some time, that they would just be able to spend more time with their mentees, talking about what can be expected academic-wise, maybe show them the writing lab, which is very helpful, and just more coordinate their way around campus academically, because I think that's really helpful. Rsdr played a big part in making me feel welcome and comfortable in the environment, but I think more emphasis could also be placed on how to situate yourself academically and be ready for Stellenbosch academic life. Yeah.
Thank you, Robin. I have a question for you. It's from the house, and the question is, what was one thing that drew you to Arusia in your first year, and how would you make sure that newcomers experience this in next year's welcoming?
Sure thing. What really drew me to Rsdr was just the feeling of inclusiveness and being welcome as I am. And I think how I would encourage this amongst my mentor team, my HC, and my fellow Rsdr members would just to act and speak in a way that I embody that and encourage that amongst my members. So what I mean by that is being approachable, not being afraid to go the extra mile for my fellow Ari, And especially the first years who might be nervous or unsure of this new environment, just being extra approachable towards them and making myself available for any questions they might have, anything that might make them nervous, and just encourage that by me setting the example, letting my fellow Aries to follow that, and really just embody that. I think it's important to speak and act in a way that you want your teammates to also speak and act, knowing that they will add their own twist on that and their own individuality. But as long as the common goal there is to be approachable and welcoming.
Thank you very much. Do we have another question from the panel?
I think you're reconnecting.
Go for it, Puka.
Are we good?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm now.
Oh, cool. So my question is a situational one. So how would you handle a situation where you are approached by a newcomer who has some trouble with the mentor?
Okay, so I definitely think when you are working in an environment where there's lots of people around you, there's bound to be conflict and people won't always get along. But as I mentioned in my speech, something that's very important to me is communication. And I think that goes hand in hand with forgiveness. So I think if I could just facilitate open communication between the mentee and the mentor, where they just chat about their perspectives on the situation and just feel free to openly communicate. If I could just be a mediator between them, and also maybe facilitate forgiveness and understanding, because I think it's really important to have open communication and grace within a community such as Rsdr, especially when there's conflict between a mentor and a mentee.
Thank you, Robin. Do we have another question from the panel? Otherwise, I have a question for you. How will you go about choosing your mentor team? What kind of characteristics will you be looking for in mentors?
Okay, so I definitely think what would be important to me is mainly people skills. I don't think as a mentor that you can really lack people skills and trying to understand people as a mentor, because when you come in as a newcomer, I think it's very critical to have people that are there to try and support you and understand you where you're at. So I would definitely look for people who are not necessarily the most extroverted or introverted people, as long as I can see that you've got a heart for people and that you want to be there as a mentor and help facilitate the transition from high school to first year for the mentees. And I think also just a willingness to show up. If the potential mentor has a willingness to show up and participate in things related to Rsdr, to their mentees, I think that's very important, because often you get people who might be keen to be a mentor, and have the people skills, but might lack the willingness to show up, and that's important to me. So I'd look for that in a team.
Thank you so much, Robin. We have a couple of seconds left, but unfortunately we can't ask questions that quickly and give you time to answer. So that concludes your caucus. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you have a lovely evening further. You are more than welcome to leave the Teams call, and then we will welcome the next candidate.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye. Okay, and our next candidate is Samantha. I think she is on the call with us. Sam, you can just put your... Hello, we can see you. There we go. You can just put your mic on for us.
Sorry, I didn't realize it was muted.
No, it's fine. Okay, great. Very welcome to your caucus for Head Mentor. I will be asking you a standardized question first, and then we will be moving on to the panel questions, and I'll open it up to the rest of the panel. So your standardized question is, which of your two roles do you deem more important? Your role as HC member or your role as Head Mentor? And if a conflict should arise, which one would you choose?
Okay, so I'm going to answer the first part of the question. So as my role of Head Mentor, it would be to serve the house committee. So to me, being head mentor wouldn't be isolated by itself, because I'm still a part of the house committee, and the house committee works with me, or I would work with them. So I find it hand in hand. There's no preference to either or, because I see them as the same. There's no isolation towards it. And then can you repeat the second part of the question?
If a conflict should arise, which side would you choose?
In that regard, whatever is best for the house. Whether it's big or small, if the conflict, whatever it is, whatever decision I would make would be for the house and how I can better the house and what my decision will do. Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to open it up to the panel now. Do we have a question from the panel? Joss, go for it.
Hi, Sam.
Hi.
So in your application, you did mention that you sometimes struggle to say no. And I'm just wondering, how do you think this will impact you in your term if you are elected head mentor, and how are you going to deal with it?
So as I said in my speech, I see this as a very big positive, because it's allowed me to become very organized and to manage my time really well. Another thing that I see that it will help benefit me as well is it will help me grow as a person, because I need to learn how to put myself first in some situations, whether it's academic or just mental health or anything like that. I do need to learn how to put myself first. It would definitely allow me to grow as a character, because you can't always drop whatever you're doing for someone else. So I think it will definitely allow me to grow. Did I answer the question there?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. I have a question for you, and then I'll open it up to the panel. This is a house question, and the question is, what is one thing that you learned throughout your mentor term that will help you as a head mentor and a general HC member?
So one of the most important things that I have actually learned is that no matter the change that you make in someone's day, it has such a big impact on their life. So whether it's a smile, whether it's an ear to listen, whether it's a shoulder to cry on or a hand to hold, it makes such a big difference in who someone's going to become. And I think that's going to help me. Sorry, can you repeat the question there? I think I'm done.
It's just, what did you learn throughout your mentor term that will help you as a head mentor and a HE member?
Yeah, so the change, and no matter how big or small, it's always going to make an impact for hopefully better.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to open it up to the panel. Do we have another question there? Puka, go for it.
Hi there, Sam. So my question is that, you know how the university provides training for mentors, right? So do you think that it's necessary for Rsdr to have its own training for mentors? And if so, what are some of the things that you would implement?
I definitely think that we should do our own training sessions as well, just because it helps us bond and learn about each other so that you don't feel isolated or alone. Because yes, the leadership training is very good from the university side. I feel like if we're going to work as a unit, you have to know each other. So if you're in trouble or anything like that, you know who to go to and how to deal with it and how to manage it. So I definitely think that we would, or if I were to be head mentor, I would implement more training sessions for us.
Thank you, Sam. I also have a question for you. And my question is, what is one thing that you think the mentor experience during welcoming lacks?
For me personally, I felt that I didn't get to know everyone as well as I would have liked to, because there were some situations where I needed a little bit of help, but I was too afraid to ask for it from my mentor side. So I feel like just the connectivity between us, I would want to try and improve. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Do I have another question from the panel?
Hi again.
Here we go.
Hi there, hi there. So a situational question, right? So how would you handle a situation whereby you were approached by a mentee who has a problem with their mentor?
I would try and find out what the problem is first, and then depending on whether it needs to be a sit-down conversation with my mentor and first discuss it with her, or bring the two together to try and sort out the conflict that might be happening. And if it's too severe for that, I would speak to my mentor on the side and say, look, this is the situation, not necessarily go too in depth about it, and say, I'm moving her over to another mentor group. Hope that's okay, and see if she's fine with that. And then I would also take my mentees or the mentee's side and see how I can benefit, or maybe even take her under my wing.
Thank you, Sam. We have time for one more question. Do I have another question from the panel? I'm just going to check. Joss did say she had some connectivity issues. Otherwise,
hello again.
Oh,
Hi.
yeah. Okay, Joss, go for it.
So my question to you is, which Rsdr value do you relate the most to, and how are you going to ensure that you use it in your term?
So for me, that's a very difficult question because there's two that resonate with me quite deeply, which is approachability and respect. So I'm going to touch on both of them, if that's okay. So with approachability, for me, my door is always open, and that's very important to who I am. So I've always wanted to have a friendly face on so that people know that they can come to me and talk to me, as well as respect. You need to be able to respect yourself as well as others. So I feel like that's very important. Did I answer the question? Or what was the second? There was the second part to the question.
How are you going to bring it through to use in your term?
I would just show from my side how I use those values as a person, and hopefully it enlightens others in how they would maybe use it in their daily lives.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you so much, Sam. That also brings us to the end of your caucus. Thank you so much for joining us. I really hope you have a lovely evening further. You're more than welcome to leave the team calls when we're done, and then I'll welcome the next candidates.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so our next candidate you would have seen in the previous caucuses, because our next candidate is Benazi. I think she is joining us very shortly, and then we'll start with her caucus. I think everyone's Wi-Fi is playing up a little bit, so we'll just give her a second to get on the call. Okay, it seems like there are some technical difficulties on Benazi's side, so I'm going to ask that Dana comes on first, and then... Oh, okay, no, looks like she is with us momentarily. All the joys of doing things online. It wouldn't be the same without some technical difficulties. I guess this beats tripping over a flat surface to do your caucus. While we're on our ad break, Puka said he'll tell us a joke. Puka, you with us?
I am with you, but I don't have a joke besides my name is Puka.
And we have Benazi online. Hello, Benazi, can you hear us?
Hi. Yes, I can hear you.
Did you have a little trouble getting on the call? It's okay. I'm glad you're on with us. Very welcome to your Head Mentor Caucus. I'll be asking you a standardized question, and then same as last time, and then we will be moving on with the rest of your caucus. So your standardized question is, which of your two roles, head mentor and HC member, do you deem more important? And if a conflict should arise, which one would you choose?
In terms of myself.
Yes, you have two roles. You're a part of the HC team and part of the mentor team. Which one do you deem more important?
Okay. I wouldn't say I deem either one more important. I think both roles are equally important because, with the mentors, you are supposed to be helping them and be a source of support. With the HC, it's the same thing. So if a conflict would arise, I think here it would be important to prioritize. Look at what really needs to be done, and if I can delegate tasks or ask someone for help, I think then it's important to recognize, what is more important in that situation. But I wouldn't say that one is more important than the other.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to open it up to the panel now, and then they can ask some questions. So do I have a question from the panel? Okay, Joss, you can go, and then Puka.
Hi, B.
Hi.
So my question for you is, what makes you particularly well suited to the head mentor position?
I think specifically my love for people and my willingness to help wherever I can. I think that in any leadership position, it's really important to have a willingness to help and to be kind and considerate, and just have a love for the people around you. In my application, it said to motivate why in one sentence you would be suitable for this job, and my answer was I have a lot of love to give. And I think that's exactly what the people that you lead need: love and encouragement.
Thank you.
Thank you, Benazi. Puka, you can ask your question.
Hi, Benazi.
Hello.
So as a head mentor, hey, you interact with a lot of other head mentors from the cluster and from the university at large, right? So how would you use that to the benefit of the ARI mentors and the ARI newcomers?
That's actually a really cool question, because I think interaction and connection is so important, and how I would use that to benefit the newcomers and the mentors is to open them up to new experiences. One of my favorite quotes by Bill Nye is, "Everyone you meet will know something you don't." And that's just really cool to me, because when you meet new people, or when I meet new people, I always have the expectation to learn. And I think that's so important in a leadership position, is to learn from other people. So I think that in interacting and connecting with other people, they can really learn a lot in terms of leadership, or just, things in life. So I think that would be really important. And also in leadership, what is the word I'm looking for? Leadership development. We could partner with other Rsdrs and PSOs in terms of workshops and things like that. Just really using your connections optimally. And yeah, I think that is how I would use it to benefit my teams.
Thanks, Benazi. I have a question for you, and my question is, how would you encourage an ARI that was not interested in leadership to be involved in Rsdr and still their leadership abilities?
Okay, so I think, that's a very interesting one. I myself, in the beginning of my first year, did not want to be a part of Rsdr. But I think what encouraged me was the support and encouragement I got from other people. I can't say that I would be able to encourage everyone to want to be in a leadership position, but I think just listening to people and knowing what their needs are is a good place to start, because sometimes their reasoning for not wanting to be in a leadership position is because they don't feel supported. So I think the first step you can take there is to make somebody feel supported and welcome, and work from there, extend your friendship and, your ear to listen to them. And I think that is a great place to start.
Ooh, muted. Do I have any other questions from the panel? There we go, Joss.
B, one more question. I just want to know, which Rsdr value do you relate to the most, and how are you going to ensure that it shines through in your term?
That's actually a really good question. I like that question because accountability is my favorite. Not accountability. Responsibility is my favorite Rsdr value, and it relates to accountability, which is one of my core values. And why it's most important to me is because if you can take responsibility for yourself and your actions, you are able to better carry out the other values. I think it's really important to be honest with yourself and know where you make mistakes and where you fall short, because that in turn will help you to improve yourself, because there's always room for improvement. And I think there was a second part of that question. Can you please repeat it?
It's just, how are you going to ensure that it shines through in your term?
Okay, so to ensure that it shines through is that I will ask people to kind of hold me accountable. If I tell you I'm going to do something and I don't do it, I would want you to tell me. And I open up a space for people to disagree with me and to tell me when they feel that I'm not right or anything like that, so that I can keep myself accountable and just check myself every time. I plan to follow through on my promises. So, yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
Renazi.
you.
I have one more question. We don't have a lot of time left, so I'm going to quick question, quick answer. What are you most excited for the role of head mentor?
I think just my building relationships and connections with people, it's so important to me. Connection is just really important to me, and I'm going to leave it there because I know we don't have a lot of time. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed your caucus, and I just want to wish you a lovely evening further. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
It was great to see you guys. Enjoy your evening, everyone.
Bye-bye. I see Dana has just joined us. Dana, very welcome. You can put on your mic and camera so that we can see your beautiful face.
Hi.
Let me spotlight you so everyone can continue seeing it. There we go. Very welcome to your head mentor caucus. I'm going to ask you your standardized question just like before, and then we'll move on to your Q&A session with the panel as well. So your standardized question is, which of your two roles as head mentor and HC do you deem more important, and which one would you side with if a conflict should arise?
Between head mentor and HC?
Yes.
I feel like it depends on where the conflict is. But I think I would probably side more in terms of head mentor, because if the conflict is about anything about the first years, anything about if it would then be my committee of mentors, then I feel like it's my job to stand up for them and to side with them and to vouch for them however I can. So I'd probably say head mentor, because that's it's an important job to me. I'm like, yeah, that is the number one thing. I guess happen to be part of the HC as well, but the main job is to be a head mentor.
Okay, thank you, Anna. I'm going to open it up to the panel. Do we have a question from the panel yet? Otherwise, yeah, Joss, go for it.
Hi, Dana.
Hi, Joss.
So my question has to do with your speech. You mentioned our head mentor, Sarah Hook, and the impact she had on you. And I just want to know, what did you like about Sarah's mentoring style, and what do you want to keep in your coming term?
Okay. I really like how Sarah always made us feel comfortable. She had an emphasis on mental health. So I never felt bad or uncomfortable to tell her if I was having an off day and I just couldn't be managing. And I never felt bad to tell her, hey, I'm really not able to cope with the amount of work I have right now. So I am going to slack on something for a little bit. But she was always assured that I would pick up the slack again. So I would definitely keep that comfortable space for people to be honest if they aren't able to manage the workload that they have been given, or if they just can't balance university and mentoring at the same time. I want to create a comfortable space for people to just be honest with me about how they're experiencing it, so I can do anything I can to make it better or to help them out however I can.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. I have a question for you, and my question is a little bit of a scenario, I guess. If a newcomer asks you what Rsdr meant to you, what would you tell them?
Wow. Yes. I would say Arusia meant finding a community, and I was very worried, particularly because I'm not in a res, and I was in a res in high school, so I was worried about finding a community and bonding in the same way that you would if you're all physically living together. And saying that I found an incredible group of people who impact me in any and all ways, in how I think and how I function, and that you don't have to be worried about not living with the people, because there are so many opportunities and so many activities and things that we do together that you always get to spend time with these people. So the impact it had was really just for me to find a group of like-minded people who are genuinely just incredibly supportive and kind.
Thank you, Dana. Do we have any question from the panel? Puka, go for it.
We do. Hello, Dana.
Hi.
Hi. So we know that the university offers a training for mentors, right? Do you think that it's necessary for Rsdr to have its own training? And if so, what are some of the things that you would implement in that training?
I don't know if I would say training necessarily, because I was a mentor in crisis 2020. I was a mentor. So the training is really extensive that we have with the university, but I think it would be important for past mentors to maybe speak to the new mentors about any sort of experiences they've had, or to give them like realistic scenarios of things that would happen. I think that could be very beneficial, because you do kind of go into it a little bit blind. They give you scenarios and all of this stuff, but I think it would be useful to hear from your own community about things that could happen, and how you could possibly handle, and how you could possibly manage it.
Thank you. I have a question for you, and my question is, how would you go about picking your mentor team? What kind of characteristics would you be looking for in mentors?
Okay. I think there's often a misconception about mentoring being purely just a very mothering role. I think there is an aspect to it about having to be firm and having to be confident in what you say. So I would look for mentors who have a certain level of confidence, but that doesn't mean it has to be like an outright a righteous sort of confidence. A lot of people have confidence, even if it's just kind of a quiet confidence within themselves. I think it's important to have that sort of confidence, and when you have a discussion with someone, you can tell if they have a sort of understanding of emotions and someone who will be empathetic towards their mentees and towards the rest of the people in the team. And then I don't think it's a bad thing to have personalities that contradict each other, because even if you face challenges within a team, it's always important to learn from each other, because if you have two people who directly disagree with each other, it's important to have that sort of discussion and to try and find common ground.
Thank you so much. That also concludes our time. Thank you for joining us tonight. It was really nice having you again, and I hope you have a lovely evening further. Yes. Thank you to the panel as well. That concludes our Head Mentor Caucus for the evening. I hope you all also have a nice evening. Bye.
Bye-bye.